Hi, good evening. My name is Hajara Piton. I'm the CEO and head chandler of Owambe Candles. And this evening, I actually wanted to come on live to talk about money. Yay! Oh gosh, remember that meme? I don't know if any of you remembers that meme about money. The lady who says, I love money, money loves me, money's coming to me. I actually like it because it's true. It's like there's a mindset about money that attracts money to you. But today, I must pin. Let's talk about money. So I'm just going to pin it up. I said I was going to learn how to do this. Yes. Let me see, post, and then fantastic, comment is pinned. Let's talk about money. Anyhow, so this evening I wanted to not quickly, I don't want it to sound like I'm always in a hurry when I come on live, but I wanted to come on and talk about money, right? So one of the sayings that has been that has stuck with me since I heard it was, it's not how much money you make, but how much money you keep that makes you rich. So I wanted to discuss that. I wanted to discuss how what you make is not necessarily what makes you rich, but what you keep makes you rich, right? And then sort of share with you ideas as to what you could do with what you are keeping. So I'm going to talk about it by sharing a scenario. I'm creating two fictitious people. They have no resemblance to anybody that I know in real life. It is just for the sake of example. So let's assume that there's a lady called Loretta, right? And Loretta earns, let's say she earns ₦1 million a month, right? Remember that the premise of this initial conversation or the initial part of the conversation is that it's not how much money you make, but how much money you keep that makes you rich. So let's say Loretta earns ₦1 million a month, right? And Loretta pays in her monthly expenses, she pays DSTV, nanny, driver, gardener. She pays them, let's say 200,000, right? Out of her ₦1 million earnings. Then let's say she pays her tithe. She pays 100K out of her tithe. So, out of her salary as tithe. So that's 300K. Now Loretta is, she's, middle class, she's okay. She has good friends and she goes for their weddings and, events regularly. Now, she goes for those events and let's say she spends on a shoebi, she spends, let's say 50K on each. Like that's how much she's buying the shoebi for. She buys it for 50K. So she buys for 2 weddings at 100K. That's already 400K. And now, because her ashwabi of course has to fit nicely and all of that, they're going to good tailors, people who can ensure that it's properly sculpted and all of that. So she sells them for another 100K each. So how much are we on? We're already on 400K, right? Now, for each wedding, she does her gele, she does her makeup, and let's say for each of those, she spends 30K. I'm actually not sure what these things cost because these are like weddings and all of that are not things that I do often. I'm very nerdy. I like to be at home reading books, and so that is not a criticism on anybody. I'm just extrapolating costs now. So let's say she spends 30K on each, gele, and she spends 30K on the gele and on the makeup for each wedding. So we're on 300, 400, 500. So now we're on 560, for example, right? So, okay, Loretta is also the kind of person that she doesn't ask her husband, or maybe he gives her money for food in the house, but she decides to add her own, so that she gets what she would like and what the kids would like. So maybe she adds an additional 100K to the food money. So we're already on 660,000 that Loretta is spending at the looking at her income, right? She gets her hair done twice a month, and she gets her nails done, and then maybe her eyelashes. Let's say on those, she spends another 80K. So already we're on 740K out of her 1 million that Loretta is earning and Loretta is spending, right? Then take it further Loretta then maybe sends money to her parents because she's a good child, of course. So maybe sends 150K to her mommy, 50K to her daddy. That's another 100K. So we're now on 840,000 that she has spent. In a month, maybe she goes out to hang out with her girls, because we all did it for stress relief. So she goes out twice in a month to hang out with her girls. They have drinks, they have finger food somewhere nice, etc. So she does that, and let's say she spends 50,000 on that in a month. So each outing is about 25K, which seems about reasonable to me. So she's already spent 890,000. Now she goes to when she spends, that's already 890,000. Now for the kids want to go to the cinema, they want to order pizza in at home, they want to do etc. Anyhow, she has 50K budgeted for that in her budget. So it is at the beginning of the month, when you look at Loretta's finances based on this, Loretta has already spent 940,000. She has spent 940,000 and has only 60,000 left out of her 1 million naira earnings, right? So remember that our premise is that what you earn is not what you earn that makes you rich, it's what you keep that makes you rich. So because of this, Loretta has 60K at the end of the month. I know how 60K can just go away, like, in normal household things. So Loretta thinks, after all, I'm middle class, I earn very well, I earn 1 million naira, I can just go to my banking app and borrow another 200K. Because if I earn 1 million naira, what's the 200K, right? So she gets another loan, and that loan tides her over for the rest of the month, having done these things that she wants to do. Now let's take another lady. The other lady's name is Rita. Rita earns 450,000 in a month. And every month, as Rita gets her salary, the first thing she does is remove 45,000, 10% of it, and put in her savings account. She can even have done this, let's say, by direct debit instructions. So she tells the bank, immediately my salary comes in, remove 45,000 and put it in another account. So actually in her mind, it's as if she's earning 405,000, right? Like that 45,000 doesn't even exist. Now, what happens is, so even if Rita finishes all her money, like she has all the expenses and she finishes all her money by the end of the month, right? But she has that 45,000 saved. Now, when you look at these two ladies at the end of the year, Rita, who earns 450,000, has 560,000 in her savings, and Loretta, who earns 1 million naira, is in debt and has no money saved, even though she has the looks of being more expensive and the trappings of living a richer life. Do you understand that? So that at the end of the day, Rita, who earns less, is actually richer than Loretta, who earns more. So I think that's a premise to establish, that unless you're putting money aside and saving, then even if you're earning a lot and you're spending as much as you're earning, then you're probably poorer than someone who earns less than you earn. That's on the one hand. Now let's use Rita for the purposes of our discussion, because Rita is actually now saving money, right? She's saving her money. So we're using Rita. She saved 540,000. Sorry, I said 560. Don't trust my math, so all of this is just for the purposes of understanding, like, the money conversation, what you do with it. So Rita has 540,000 saved at the end of the year based on the scenario we just discussed. Now, a first step is to create what we call an emergency fund. So Rita has her 540,000 that she saved from her monthly income. Rita now says, okay, I want to look at doing more with my money, right? But what Rita first does is she thinks about it. Because I don't know if you guys know anybody, like, you see somebody that has been, they dress well, they go to work, they do everything, they're okay. Then 3 months after, let's say, you hear they get fired, and you meet them 3 months after, and it's almost as if their clothes have holes, like they look like they're much poorer because they haven't earned a salary in 3 months. And that's one of the things I say, that in Nigeria, where the society is very cash based, A lot of us are almost like 3 months away from poverty, 90 days away. Because if you're not saving, then what keeps you? God forbid, if you have an emergency, you fall ill, you get fired, for some reason you're not at work. What keeps you? It's your savings, right? So the first thing Rita wants to consider is to build what we call an emergency fund. An emergency fund will be having saved, some people say a year's expenses, but for the purpose of this conversation, let's say 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. So let's say, like I said, Rita finishes her money. So because she finishes her money, she also finishes her money apart from the amount she saves. Rita then needs to save 3 months worth of expenses, right, of living expenses. And that would now be, let's say, 1,350. Sorry, 1,350,000. That's what she needs to have in her savings as her emergency fund. Now, one of the reasons why I like this whole idea of an emergency fund, right, is that you put the money aside and you leave it there, knowing that life is going to happen. One day your car will get bad. One day there will be a big emergency and you have somewhere to go to. I also want to say that in addition to your emergency fund, I have a friend who always tells me you need to have multiple accounts. So in addition to your emergency fund, once you have that saved, you usually want to put it where it is accessible in cash. Because you know, the investments, so we're going to talk about investments, but investments are not liquid. Cash is the one that is liquid. So the one for emergency should be available somewhere that you're not touching in cash. Now, having done that, both Rita and Loretta, they work, Abi, meaning that they probably have Christmas bonus, they have leave allowance, they have all the extra sources of money that come. Now, those extra sources of money, two things can happen. With a Rita who is so disciplined, she can say, having saved up her emergency fund, or even before she gets there, she can actually say what she wants to be saving every month is, as opposed to 45K, maybe it is 60K, right? And that money is split into two. One goes into her account that she will eventually invest from, and the other one goes into the account that is building the emergency fund. So she's building both at the same time. Now, if Loretta, who earns $1 million a month, also wanted to have an emergency fund, she will need to have an emergency fund of, let's say, 3 million. So I'm going to talk about the first level of investment that I think Rita should have. Once Rita has saved her, saved money, I would then say one of the first and most useful investments you can make is in real estate. There was something I heard a while ago that if, for example, a child finishes university and his parents give him a house, that the parents have given the child 25 years of life. And when I thought about it, I thought this is actually a fact. You can actually give your child more years, not lengthening their life, but give them more to do with the time that they have. So think about it like that. When most of us finish school, we start to work. Like we finish university, you get our first job. In your first job, you are not likely, in your first 3 to 5 years, you're not likely to be looking for a house. Maybe you are living with daddy, you're living with mommy, you're living with an auntie, you're living in a town where you know somebody, where you got the job, right? Or if you're paying rent, you're probably paying rent somewhere small where you're sharing with people because this is your very first job. Now, in the next, let's say 5 years, you've done well at work, you're growing, you can now afford to rent a good place that you are staying in. Somewhere between that 5 and 10 years, then you start to think, oh, it would be great to get a mortgage, to get my own place. At this point, you're now thinking, I want to get married, etc. So at this point, you go and get a mortgage from a bank. You want to buy your own place, you get a mortgage from a bank, and you start paying it down maybe for 10 or 15 years. So you see that with this scenario, your first 10 years you are building, you're staying with somebody, your first 5 years staying with somebody, your next 5 years you're renting, and another 10 years you're paying off the mortgage for this first house you bought. So that's 20 years. Now, if your child, that's somebody who has to do it on their own. If your child comes out of school and at that point you say, here, this house is yours. It might actually not be a house that the child can live in at that point. It might be a house that is too big for the child to live in, which then makes sense for the child to rent out, get some of the money, use some of that to be paying his own rent in a smaller place, and then having the balance to invest. But either way, that person that had to go through a 20-year journey, the child that is given the real estate at the point of coming out, gets his journey cut by 20 years. So he starts 20 years ahead of his colleagues, ahead of his mates. So I think that that's such a great concept. That's such a great way to think about it, that look, my investment actually has the possibility of being the vehicle for transgenerational wealth for my children, for my progeny, for my family, So I just wanted to start by discussing that. We're going to go into other things. When next I do Let's Talk About Money, we'll talk about other ways that this money can be grown. Because if any of you knows my own business story, I started my business with about 17,000 naira, right? Because there was a need to start the business. And then I started to, when I saw that it was successful, after putting, a certain portion of my salary monthly, and that's why I always say my salary is my investor, meaning that you can take, you don't have to have a lot to start doing something wonderful. You just start first, So I started with 17,000 naira, moved to 25,000. Then one year, the year that I now said, I wanted to do Harrods stuff, I knew I didn't have any bulk money to buy from Harrods. What I did was every month I put aside 200 pounds, which was 50,000 naira then, and I was using it to buy stuff from Harrods and saving towards Christmas when I was going to put them of course I bought non-perishables early in the year, when I was going to put them in hampers and sell until the business became quite successful. Do you understand? So you don't look at and don't wait for when the money is big. Start to use what is already in your hands strategically by having a savings culture. Start to use what's already in your hands to grow your business. So that's my money talk for today. We're talking about money, and I'm telling you that it's not how much you have, but it's not how much you earn, but how much you keep that makes you rich. That's what makes you rich. I also heard something one time that really, it broke my heart very seriously. It said, a fool and his money are soon parted. So, sometimes when I want to make a spending decision, sometimes even when I want to make an investment decision, I want to be sure that I'm making the decision from a position of wisdom, so that me and my money are not soon parted. And part of the reason why is that I don't want to assume or think that I am foolish. Do you understand? I want my money to work for me. And so the next time we talk about money, we'll be talking about how Rita can use what she's saved. Aside from her emergency fund, she can use what she has saved to multiply it. We've already talked about real estate, so we'll talk about other things when next we talk about money. Stay well. Ciao. Thank you for joining this live. I'll send you all a wave. Thank you.